Okay, we're back. We're going to finish up with the Arizona Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks NFC West preview as part of the Powers on Sports NFL preview. Next week, we will wrap up the previews with the NFC and AFC South as we head into week one of the regular season. All right, let's head to the desert, Arizona, Phoenix, Kingsbury gets an extension in the offseason. They pretty much have mirrored Kingsbury, Keim, and Kyler Murray all together. Murray gets his extension, Kingsbury's is extended, and Keim is extended. So they are going all in with this trio to lead the franchise. James Conner gets re-signed. Zach Ertz gets re-signed. They trade for Hollywood Brown. They give up their first round pick for Hollywood from Baltimore. They do lose Chandler Jones. They lose Christian Kirk to the huge contract in Jacksonville. Just your thoughts about the Cardinals through the offseason.
Some good moves from the Cardinals. I thought throughout this offseason. The extension for Kingsbury I thought was interesting because I think his seat is almost as hot as anybody in the league. You look at this, this team for what they bring to the table here with Arizona. I'm looking at a group that is so talented, right? With Kyler Murray and those receivers and everything here. I mean, the expectation should be not just get to the playoffs, but win a playoff game.
Yeah.
And if Cliff Kingsbury can't coach a team to win a playoff game, then you have a big problem. You look at every year that he's been there, fast starts and then collapse down the stretch.
Right.
I mean, every time that's been the case with Arizona. They have to have some momentum going into the postseason. It can't be like it's been the last few years. And I like Kyler Murray a lot. I think he's very talented, but they have given him all the receivers he could ever want. I mean, with what they've made the last couple of years, with all the guys that they've brought in, the moves they've made there, I mean, that Cardinals team should be averaging 30-plus points a game.
Right.
I mean, realistically, that's what they should be doing.
And they found they found a bit of a running game last year with Conner too. James Conner had a good year for them. Is he great? No, but he's serviceable.
Yeah, he's serviceable. I didn't like him in Pittsburgh. I think that he could do more. But that's part of the reason why, Kyler Murray, you have a running back and quarterback kind of with what he can do running the football as well. So the run game there, I have my concerns about James Conner, but that offense the passing game should be terrific. Defensively, J.J. Watt, to me, I wonder, when do we start to see the decline, right?
Right.
As he gets older and throughout his career, we've seen the injury issues pop up, but what type of year do we see from J.J. Watt? That I don't know at this point in his career. I think everything's kind of year by year with JJ at this point. And who I do like from this defense that I think is going to be vital to their success is Isaiah Simmons.
Okay.
They drafted him a couple of years ago out of Clemson. Dynamic player. Isaiah Simmons, I think, can be a Pro Bowl caliber player. I think Isaiah Simmons needs to have a big year. There's certain things, that you can pinpoint to and say, this guy is going to be the reason why this happens or the difference maker here. For me, I'm looking at for this team, Isaiah Simmons, if he can be an all-pro player, that'll be a big step up. But it's not about just having the fast start, but also finishing strong for this team too, and that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and Budda Baker in the secondary is a Pro Bowl safety. And again, to me, your point about J.J. Watt, how's he going to play and how's he going to produce with no Chandler Jones on the other side? When more of the attention might go to J.J. Watt this year than it was in previous years when you had Chandler Jones on the side. How does that work? Question for you about Kyler Murray. You know him very well from his Oklahoma days. Leadership-wise, is this guy a leader of men, or is he just a great athlete playing quarterback? And I mean, good player at quarterback, but can he be the leader that franchise needs?
Good question. I do think that it's a bit overblown a bit. The whole, Kyler Murray leadership aspect and all that. I mean, a lot of it comes down
Study hall.
I think it more of it. I'm more concerned about Kingsbury than I am about Kyler Murray.
Okay.
That's where my issue, where I add up. I think a lot of people are pointing blame to Kyler Murray, but a lot of it I think starts with the head coach and the head coach, establishing the culture there. And I think that Kingsbury has run kind of a loose operation and let Kyler Murray, get away with some things there. And to me, that comes down to coaching. I know that a lot has been put on Kyler Murray here, but for me, I think that's more on Kingsbury than anything else. So I'm not concerned about, Kyler Murray. I think that, he's very talented. His teammates seem to like him. As far as I'm concerned here. So we'll just see. A lot to be played out here, a ways to go, but I look at that team. It's very talented. It's just a matter of if they can put it all together or not.
All right, let's go to your wheelhouse, the Seattle Seahawks. I know you cover these guys on a regular basis and doing a lot of work with Chat Sports covering them. Pete Carroll, they trade Russ in the offseason. They're kind of going through a reboot. They lose Bobby Wagner, kind of again they're getting younger. It sounds like for sure, and they're getting cheaper. They bring in Locke, they bring in Fan as part of the trade. Geno Smith has been named the starter in Seattle now by Pete Carroll, leading into the early part of the season. They draft Charles Cross, the offensive tackle from Mississippi State, to fortify that offensive line. They lose, remember, Chris Carson retires, so they're going with Rashad Penny. They draft Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State to be the running back, who's now injured a little bit. Just your thoughts about the Seattle plan of attack moving forward with that post-Russ.
Well, it's a rebuilding year in Seattle. That's evident. They named Geno Smith the starter this week, and they have some nice weapons. I mean, between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Noah Fant, I mean, that's a really good receiving core. There's a significant drop-off after Lockett and Metcalf when you go to the number 3 and 4 receivers. Freddie Swain, D. Eskridge, Marquise Goodwin. Those guys are not even close to those other 3. So, for Geno Smith, his number one objective is going to be getting the football to Metcalf and Lockett. And, I've heard people ask, fantasy owners in particular, do we see a down year from DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett? I mean, the numbers last year when Geno Smith filled in for Russell Wilson, those guys, their numbers almost were the same. The drop-off was not there. If anything, just common sense tells you, okay, if I'm a new quarterback and I'm trying to figure out how to run the offense, trying to be the most effective I can be, I don't know, maybe go to the 6'4" receiver that's standing at 235 pounds. That might be an idea there. The run game, they've already had some injury issues. Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker III both missed some preseason games, but they have seen a lot out of DJ Dallas and Travis Homer in these preseason games where you have depth that I don't think people realize that they had. Those guys stepped up. DJ Dallas, in particular, as a receiver, could be a really good third down back there. The offensive line has its issues. They're going to start booking rookie tackles with.
That is not a good sign.
Yeah, Charles Cross, the first-round pick, and then Abraham Lucas, a third-round pick. I think both guys have bright futures, but they're going to be very raw, and they don't have a whole lot of experience in run blocking. They both came from very pass-heavy air raid systems. Lucas at Washington State, Cross at Mississippi State. So that offense, there's I think it's better than people think because the run game is going to be good, and they have some good receivers, but the quarterback play is suspect, and the offensive line play has got a ways to go.
Seems like the last couple of years, Pete and Russ were never really on the same page philosophically. Pete Carroll's a run and play defense kind of guy. See, from his days with the Legion of Boom and back in the early days in Seattle, Russ obviously wanted to throw the ball more and all that stuff. So that seems to have been a ongoing, butting of heads to some degree. Do you think Pete Carroll's in for the long term here? Because obviously I'm with you. I think it's a full rebuild in Seattle this year. I think they're going to be bad. They potentially be a top 5 draft pick. Do you think this is Pete Carroll's going to see this through, or is this something where at the end of this year, if they win 3 or 4 games, that Pete Carroll might say, you know what, I've had enough. Remember, he's 70 plus years old. Do you think he's here for the long term?
I don't know one way or the other. I could see it being either way. I think this is going to be a big mental test of mental toughness for Pete Carroll, because it is not going to be a good year. But, the foundation, I think, is being laid, and there's some really good parts to this. I mean, what they did in this draft, we mentioned Cross and Lucas, but also adding in Kenneth Walker and Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, Boye Mafe. I mean, there's some really talented pieces that they added.
Yep.
Even if they add, we talked about a quarterback away with Denver. Now it feels like the same problem almost with Seattle.
Yeah, right.
Next year, if they go add a quarterback, I mean, next year they could be a playoff team. That wouldn't be crazy. I mean, there's some good pieces being added. The next year they get more of Denver's picks as well. Patience is going to be so key. If Pete Carroll, can sit through this, then the fruits of their labor could pay off down the road. But it's going to take time. This isn't going to be overnight, as far as I'm concerned.
No, I'm with you. All right, so we've gone through the division. Again, it's very similar to the AFC West. This division could easily have 3 teams in the playoffs, with San Francisco, Arizona, and the Rams potentially. And I think we both agree Seattle's probably the 4th team. Who do you like out of this division, and why?
Out of this division, I'm still going with the reigning champs, going with the Rams.
Okay.
I think they're the most talented team. I think they're the best coach team. I like McVay more than I do the other coaches in this division. But I see 3 teams out of the division making the playoffs. I think Arizona and San Fran each get wild card berths, and going to be very good wild card teams. Talking about 10+ wins, I think, for both of them this year. To me, it's going to be very competitive. I think this division could come down to the very last week of the regular season, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting for sure.
No, I mean, like I said, these AFC and NFC West might be the most competitive divisions in all of football because of the depth of the teams. Even Seattle will beat somebody they're not supposed to beat at some point in the division because of that home field advantage in Seattle, and just that aura of as long as Pete Carroll's been there, he'll beat somebody.
You mean it's more competitive than the NFC North?
Come on, you're not all in with Dan Campbell on Hard Knocks? Come on.
Oh,
Tyler.
yeah. Oh, man. I did love Aaron's interview with Joe Rogan the other day. That was interesting. But the NFC as a whole, though, I mean, it is anyone's guess, right? I mean, the Bucs, their offensive line, I'm concerned about. This is the most talented receiving core Brady's ever had.
Yep.
But if you don't have anybody to block for you, that's not good for a 45-year-old man, and with the Packers losing Devontae Adams and that receiving core, I think is going to take a step back. I mean, who knows? There is not a complete team in the NFC.
No.
I think, there is probably, at least 3 teams in the AFC that are better than anyone in the NFC.
That's debate. Okay, I don't know about 3. I would take, and I'm with you. I think the eliteness of the AFC is a little bit better than the NFC, but I think the NFC has a bunch of really good teams, 4 or 5 really good teams that could you could say either one of these 5 could go to the Super Bowl and not have a beef with it either way. 2 points I want to get to before that I omitted. Remember, DeAndre Hopkins out 6 weeks for the Cardinals, PED suspension, so he'll be out the first 6 weeks of the season. And what do you think when we're recording this, there's not been a decision made on Jimmy G yet. What do you think the 49ers do with Jimmy G? Because if he's on the roster by week 1, they got to pay him his full salary.
Right. If they release him, they only have to pay him $1.6 million. I think they release him, and he's going to be a backup somewhere this year. I mean, there could even be a circumstance where they just renegotiate his deal to be the backup quarterback right there in San Francisco.
Right.
He knows the offense, as well as anybody. And Jimmy G as a backup, I think, would be as good as any backup in the NFL. So I don't think that's a crazy possibility, potentially. But I do think, the smart move is going to be to either release him, renegotiate, or trade him. But I don't know why anyone would want to trade for Jimmy G and take on that $26 million contract right now. As far as DeAndre Hopkins goes, 6-game suspension. We talked about with the Cardinals how they've been getting off to these fast starts and then ending the year losing momentum. I mean, if you're looking for a blessing in disguise of some sorts, maybe for Arizona, what you're hoping for is by getting Hopkins back that you gain some momentum down the line.
Right.
I think that's your hope, is that you have something of benefit there of getting him back later. Him and Marquise Brown together, though, I mean, good luck trying to cover both those guys. I mean, every pass from Kyler Murray is going to be 20-plus yards. I mean, those guys can fly down the field. It's going to be unfair.
And Rondale Moore is a sneaky slot guy. The second-year player out of Purdue. He'll be a sneaky slot guy as well. Tyler, great work, man. Great job breaking it down, both divisions. Again, publicize where you're at online and all your social platforms.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Find me, Tyler Jones Live. That's where I'm at, doing the Jones Report every Thursday on all podcast platforms, and covering the NFL with Chat Sports as well. Jason, thanks for having me, man. Always glad to do it.
I appreciate it, man. Have a great season. We'll be in touch, buddy.